Hey my good friend, Sam Haymart. For Test Driven TV, I have spent the entire week with the 2018 Acura MDX Sport Hybrid Advance. Their fully loaded crossover SUV hybrid with 3 rows of seats, the family truckster as it were. Now this particular vehicle competes directly with the Lexus RX450h, and there are some other competitors out there that are a little bit distant, but you could compare it to, the Lexus being the most direct one. Now I have spent the entire week with this, driving it in the city, a little bit of time on the highway, having some fun with it. It's really given me the opportunity to really develop a sense of what it's like to live with. My key takeaways coming right up. All right, my friends, I got to be honest with you. When I first saw the Acura MDX on my press car list for future cars coming up, I got to tell you, I just kind of went, oh, really? Boring. And then I saw the word hybrid, and then I really just kind of went, God, you know. But here's the thing. After spending a week in it, I realized that I was completely wrong. I had apathy prior to investigation, because the thing with this vehicle is it's a hybrid, yes. It's a front-wheel drive based 3-row crossover SUV. What isn't these days? But this offers something in the market that really sets it apart from its competitors, believe it or not. So let's talk about those things. First of all, styling. Now this vehicle's been with us now since the 2014 model year, so it's pretty familiar if you're driving around out there. They did give it a refresh for the 2017 model year, which is the new diamond-shaped grille, and pretty much an entire new face here. We've got LED headlights with multiple reflectors in there, multiple bulbs I should say. And one of the things that I really noticed here that sets this thing apart visually from most of the other ones you see on the road are these black 20-inch wheels. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a black wheel guy. I'll be really happy when this black wheel fad fades. I'm pretty much done with it. But that said, on this particular vehicle, in this presentation, I actually think it works pretty good. We've got a grille here that picks up on those. We've got trim around the windows and on those mirrors that picks up on them. I think it makes a pretty sexy looking package, and with this bright red color that's not metallic, which is very rare in this class, I gotta tell you, I really think this thing has a nice presentation to it. At the rear, you do have something that they've added in that refresh. You've got dual exhaust outlets, even on the hybrid. That's a pretty surprising thing, because in the first iteration of this generation, we just didn't have that. They were trying to hide the fact that this thing had any kind of a gas engine at all. But I think they listened to customers who said, we want some sporty looks, we want some kind of indication this thing has performance, and they put it there with those exhaust tips. LED taillights back there as well, just to sort of round things out. So when it comes to styling, that's what we've got. Before we get out on the drive, I want to tell you about what my first key takeaway is on this vehicle, and that's the interior. Now, Acura to me has always done a good interior, as has their parent company Honda. And this doesn't depart from that whatsoever, especially in this luxury category. The first thing that hit me were these beautiful, beautiful materials. I've got wood, genuine wood. It looks like genuine wood. It feels like it. It doesn't smell like it because, well, wood really doesn't have a smell in a car. But that is paired with leathers that have a nice aroma, a nice look and feel to them. And then the rest of the plastics and rubberized materials in here really contrast nicely, and they're all tied together with a beautiful satin aluminum trim that you see around here on the dash, next to the wood, on the door panels, and the switch gear that goes with it's of a very high tactile feel. And the overall fit and finish, the panel gaps, and how everything just sort of feels in your hands, very, very high quality. Those are my hot buttons when it comes to an interior here, and I'm not disappointed in any way, shape, or form. And there's consistency. Everything from the plastics down here on the side, the plastics down below where you can't necessarily see or feel them, they're of the same quality as the stuff you can see and feel. And that's very, very, very different, because a lot of car manufacturers out there, they cheap out on this stuff that you don't necessarily see and feel and touch. They only put the good stuff where they want to impress you. Everything else, they sort of go to the lowest grade. They don't do that here, and that really is one of the key points that tell me I've spent my money right when I buy a new car, especially in this price category. Comfort, these seats, I found them to be very comfortable. These are heated and ventilated. The second row back there, this has captain's chairs with a center console that has a lot of the matching detail. And in the center console, front and rear, we've got this beautiful wood. We've got a lot of storage. In this particular one, a very deep center console. All the charging ports you could ever want are here in that third row. A little bit smaller and tighter back there. Adults can sit back there, but it's really best for kids. And that can be folded down, and that gives you a nice cargo area. Even with the hybrid, you don't lose very much, if any, of your cargo capacity in this vehicle. Infotainment system here, they do something a little bit different here. This is a dual screen layout. You don't often see this. It does tend to be a little bit more difficult to use, in my opinion. I mean, once you're driving down the road, you've got maybe a nav map up there. You're able to split up your information in such a way that it makes it easier. But when you're actually trying to use it and do things, you've got a knob here to center control pucket and buttons here and there. And it's just, I just think it's one area where I think they had good intentions with the dual screens, but it just sort of adds to the complexity of daily life behind the wheel. The other thing I'm not real happy about is this push button transmission control unit. I prefer a regular lever. It's a lot more intuitive to just pull it and put it. Once you have a car, you know what it feels like, you know where it's at. You don't even have to look about it or think about it. Here, you have to actually look down and think about what you're doing, which button you're pushing, and did I do that? It's just something that takes a little bit more work, in my opinion. Don't necessarily like that, but the cup holders, well laid out, they're big and they fit just about anything. So it's a very versatile interior, to go with the fact that it is comfortable and it looks good. Under the hood of the MDX Hybrid is something that I really think does set it apart from most of its competitors, and that is the composition of its hybrid drivetrain. First of all, a 3-liter V6 gasoline engine, nothing that really makes that special on its own, but in this case, for a hybrid, it's made it to something a little bit different. A 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission and an electric motor up front. Now, what's different about that is most hybrids have a CVT, a continuously variable transmission. So that right there sets us apart in how it's going to drive and how it's going to feel. In there, that 47 horsepower electric motor adds to the power, and it also adds to its regenerative braking power. Now at the rear axle, you've got a 2-motor drive unit back there. Each motor has 36 horsepower each. All put together, all of these power sources offer a system horsepower of 318 and a torque rating of 289. Now, as we drive around, we'll talk about how this works, but on EV mode, for the most part, you've got that rear axle that powers this thing forward up to a certain speed, or keeps it going at higher speeds, like coasting at the freeway, downhills, things like that, while the engine's shut off. There's just several ways that the computer can summon either or both power source to really give you what you need. And when you put this on Sport or Sport Plus mode and really ask for all the power, it's pretty impressive in that right. Now, efficiency rated at 26 mpg city, 27 mpg highway, and 27 mpg combined. So driving around town, the first thing you'll notice is that this doesn't feel like a hybrid. That's the first thing that very much impressed me. 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. That means it is not only a regular automatic transmission in how it performs, but it's better than that. It's actually a robotic manual, so its shifts are crisper, they're more direct, and when you really start using these paddle shifters and you put it in sport mode, you tend to find that it's very responsive. And so that would be an impressive thing in a regular gas vehicle, let alone not something you expect to find in a hybrid. And Acura's gone to the trouble to put it here. And I've complained about these things in other vehicles because they're not well done. They tend to be herky-jerky. They tend to be abrupt at takeoff. They're just not well sorted. But this one, Honda has somehow managed, Acura, I mean, to dial this thing up right. It just never seems to shudder. It never seems to stutter. It never seems to stumble. It never jerks you around. This thing shifts and behaves every bit as good as the smoothest of automatic transmissions. And when this engine shuts off and it turns on, it disconnects from the transmission in such a way that you don't even notice it. In fact, most of the time when I'm driving and the engine shuts off, just like it is right now, we're driving an electric power at 40 miles an hour, you don't even notice it. And I lay into the throttle, and the engine, the only way I know it came on is I just saw the tach needle pop up. I barely heard it or felt it. So this is a very, very refined powertrain for a hybrid. And that, I rarely say that about any hybrids. But the big question when it comes to any vehicle like this is, how does it go? How much power does it have? And can it really, really impress you? Well, I just got an opening in traffic here, and we're gonna find out. Woo! Not bad. Woo! And I'm going 80 on a city street. Okay, I better slow down. Slows down really fast. Okay, so this thing's got a lot of grunt, a lot of zoot, a lot of verve. I mean, it really does have a good amount of power, and it's delivered in a way that feels every bit as normal as you'd expect in any vehicle. It doesn't feel like a hybrid that has that sort of elevator taking off and floating up into the sky, you know, pulley and cable thing going on. It feels normal. So I love that. Very, very impressed. Now, in my week with this, I got 26 mpg city, which is exactly what it's promised. And when I was spending time on the highway, this thing did achieve the as promised 27. So we're right in the mark. I ended up with 26.3 for my weekly average on the tank, which is representative about the ratio I spent city highway. So I'm very impressed with not only how it performs in terms of performance, but efficiency. It really did ring my bell there. So I'm happy with the powertrain. That's my second big takeaway. On the matter of the driving experience, the other part of the coin is, of course, handling. How does it feel? How does it behave when you start asking for it to, well, perform for you? So I'm out here on a little bit of a curvy road, which there are very few of here in Phoenix. And one of the great things about this particular vehicle is it does have the adaptive suspension, which is tied to the drive modes. You've got Comfort, Normal, Sport, and Sport Plus. And so that changes the actual steering feel. It changes the damper feel so that you can get a stiff, tight suspension, or you can get something that's a little bit more comfort oriented. And so what I've found is that this is a suspension and a steering system that's already well sorted regardless of how you have those dampers set. And it tends to be very responsive. The tires that it's paired with are actually pretty good. A lot of hybrids really give you garbage tires. And so I like what they've done here in terms of the overall feel of this vehicle as a baseline. So then you add in the stiffer settings when you put it on Sport, and you really get something that I find very impressive, hybrid or not. And so again, that's something that you don't hear somebody say about hybrids. It's impressive hybrid or not. So this is a vehicle that it feels good. It feels very well sorted. It's one system together. You don't have the steering feels good, the suspension feels good, it's got a good ride. Everything together feels as one. Very, very rare out there in the automotive market. And I do dare say that does separate this from the Lexus RX just a little bit. Very good handling SUV. It has a quality chassis as well, but this feels a little bit dialed down to one piece. A little bit more so, I think. And I've mentioned BMW in the past talking about Acura products. If there was a Japanese BMW, I would say we're in it. This is as close to the traditional BMW connected driving experience that I've gotten in an Asian vehicle. So Acura has fulfilled that sort of legacy that they've had, in my opinion, for some time. Overall, I'm very pleased with the driving experience here. It's almost I'd buy it level. In fact, it really just is I'd buy it level when it comes to the driving experience. I think it's top of class in that way, hybrid or not. And I just think that if you're a driving enthusiast and you're looking at a hybrid crossover, this is probably something you ought to test drive. All right, my friends, let's wrap it up for the 2018 Acura MDX Sport Hybrid all-wheel drive Advance. I hope I said all that in the right order. It's quite a mouthful, but that's the title of the vehicle. I'm very impressed overall, and as I said at the outset, this vehicle has really very few competitors, the biggest one being that Lexus RX450h. And even though they're very similar in size and scope and in price, they're quite a bit different in what they're like to live with. And the Lexus, very nice product, but I think there are three key takeaways here that set this apart from the Lexus. The first is this has a phenomenally executed interior. Now Lexus, very good interior, but this, Acura has always provided some of the best quality, the best fit and finish, the best tactile used for a driver, and in this case, very, very good materials. Very hard to find fault with this interior, and we talked about that a little bit. Powertrain. That's really where this vehicle sets itself apart from any other hybrid on the market, with this 7-speed dual clutch transmission and those paddle shifters, and the way this is designed and put together. This can be a very exciting and fun hybrid to drive. And if you're a driving enthusiast, I think if you drive both of these vehicles, you'll really appreciate what they've done here in terms of how responsive it is, how powerful it is, and it still has the efficiency to go with it. It performed as advertised. I was very impressed with that. The third thing, and the most important thing, value. $59,000 and some change, fully loaded, everything they offer on this thing. I'm very impressed. You've got a vehicle that comes pretty much one way when you buy it, and they put everything in there that you could really want. You can spend a lot more money on the Lexus if you stack a few more things on it. Nothing wrong with that if you want the Lexus, but when it comes to the value option, I think this is it. So those three things make this vehicle very distinctive in the market, in a market where crossover SUVs tend to be not necessarily distinctive. So I'm impressed. Now, would it make it the I'd buy it list? Not necessarily. It's got three legs of the stool. The fourth would be the styling really talking to me. I tend to like something a little bit more rugged, maybe masculine, but that's me, you know. If this is a family vehicle, usually another person has a choice, and that's the person most likely to like it, if you know what I'm saying. So nonetheless, very impressed, very nice choice, definitely worth a test drive. Now, if you like this test drive, please click right there, see another one of our latest videos, or click right down there, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Either way, stay tuned.